Hi guys, this is Sabi and today we are going to do a moveset breakdown of everybody's favorite spiky boy, Arch-Tempered Nergigante. Life is hard. The same thing can be said about Arch-Tempered Nergigante the first time you cross paths with it. As the last major monster update prior to Iceborne, Arch-Tempered Nergigante sort of serves like a bookend to the original Monster Hunter World game. By the way, the monsters release also came with the addition of a new dynamic theme, featuring of course Nergigante. I actually ended up getting it despite not being someone who likes DLC normally, but I decided to do it just because of the way microtransactions were implemented in this game, and I found them to be non-predatory, so I figured I'd go ahead and show my support for the series in general. Yeah, so I think it's fitting that they had Arch-Tempered Nergigante as sort of the last major monster for the base Monster Hunter World experience, just because it's the theme monster for the game, and I thought it was perfect to have Monster Hunter sort of close the chapter on that original Monster Hunter World experience. As someone who's played a lot of Monster Hunter World games before, I actually found the initial part of the game to be not that hard. And I was just going through the game real quick without even really putting together good gear. I was just putting stuff together so I could go through the campaign real quick. And Nergigante was actually the first wall that I faced in this game. And it took me maybe 5-6 tries to pretty much defeat him the first time. Part of it was, of course, I wasn't used to the monster yet, but the main thing was that I was maining the heavy bowgun at the time, which, of course, isn't quite as mobile as other weapons. And Nergigante was just like super fast. Super fast and super aggressive, and he had a lot of moves that would one-shot me with my piddly armor. Yeah, so it was my first wall, it was pretty tough. And I still remember the first time I beat him, I just smacked the couch and stood up and yelled, which I rarely do. I'm usually pretty soft-spoken, but that was just how happy I was to beat him. And after that, I got used to him, started using other weapons as well, but even with heavy bowgun, he became pretty easy. I ended up putting the heavy bowgun aside for a few months so I could try other weapons. And then the first time I tried playing heavy bowgun again, the very first monster I challenged was Nergigante, and even without all that practice, I think I was able to take him down like less than 4 minutes, maybe even 3. Yeah, even Arch-Tempered Nergigante provided a bit more of a challenge, but it wasn't a monster that I would exactly dread fighting or go, not this guy, like say Arch-Tempered Kushala or Arch-Tempered Lunastra. And part of it is because Nergigante is a pretty straightforward fight. He doesn't bring any flames or miasma or stupid tornadoes, you know. He's just super aggressive, so you don't have to deal with environmental effects or even stuff like Arch-Tempered Kirin's lightning. Oh my god. To this day, I have yet to beat Arch-Tempered Kirin with a group. I've always just beaten him solo. Yeah, that's what I like about Nergigante. I don't have to worry about that other stuff. I just need to focus on the monster and do my thing, so. Arch-Tempered Nergigante, however, sort of changes that equation a little bit. It actually does make the Nergigante fight difficult again. Unless, of course, you're one of the savants of Monster Hunter who can just do speedruns and kill the thing off and keep staggering it and flinching it. So while the monster doesn't have a lot of those annoying moves that some of the other monsters have, what he does have is that trademark aggression. He seems even faster or even more aggressive. And he now has even more one-shot moves. And honestly, it's those one-shot moves that really make this fight a challenge. And especially bad if you've gotten used to fighting regular Nergigante with better gear and get into bad habits where you just do stuff that gets you hit, but since you don't die in one hit, you just keep doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So yeah, you got to be a bit more disciplined when fighting Arch-Tempered Nergigante versus the regular ones. As far as preparing for the fight, of course that depends on what weapon or gear you come in with, but there are like some basic universal things that would be helpful. At the top of the list as far as quality of life is probably health boost. Arch-Tempered Nergigante hits like a truck. Or Truck-kun for you anime fans out there. And so, even with health boost, he still has some moves that can actually one-shot you. But at least with the extra health, all of his other moves either won't kill you or gives you some breathing space to take a few more hits and then maybe heal yourself. Yeah, so health boost is good, especially if you're still learning the fight. Feline Moxie is great too. As far as other skills, maybe earplugs would be good. At the same time, that means you'll have to take out some other skills that might be more important to you. So far, I haven't used earplugs when hunting him, but sometimes just having the earplugs could be a good quality of life thing that can give you one less thing to worry about. And as far as stuff to bring, you got your usual stuff like max potions, just in case you need a quick heal back to full health. Life powders if you're playing as a group. Preferably, it would be great if everybody brings a life powder, because if everybody uses them at the same time, then you can do a significant heal as opposed to just one person doing it, because then maybe even that one life powder is not going to be enough to prevent a guy from dying after being hit by an attack from Arch-Tempered Nergigante just as you're healing them. Stuff like Immunizer is good to sort of get your life bar going back up faster if you get damaged. Farcaster, of course, if things go south, especially when you're fighting at the lava area. And if you find yourself stuck standing in lava getting tick damage while your life is almost gone, you could just Farcaster out of there, which I've done several times. Cool drinks, of course, when you're fighting in the hot areas. And then flash pods. Obviously, Arch-Tempered monsters develop resistance to flash pods after a few times, but I was in Hunt once, and I think it was with a sword and shield user who was not only really good at healing, which is great when you get that when pairing with randoms, but the person also had really great timing in using the flash pods, just as Nergigante would say, do a dive bomb, or every time we would just go up in the air and set up for one of those punishing attacks, especially when like a teammate was in trouble. This guy would just chuck a flash pod, bring him down, and of course he starts kind of struggling in the ground and you get some free hits in. Yeah, so that's one thing to bring as well. So yeah, those are just some basic stuff. Things change depending on your weapon as well, but those are sort of some universal tips to think of. So let's go to the moveset, which is what this video is about. I will start with what I like to call the tick moves. By that I mean they're not as powerful as all of his other moves, but just because they don't do as much damage doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to them, because they have one sort of shared thing that makes them dangerous in their own right. By the way, these move names I use are not the official move names. They're kind of like my imaginary friends, and by that I mean they come straight inside from my troubled mind. Right, so let's get started. First is what I like to call the front paw swipe. This is just a quick forward swipe with either the right hand or the left hand or paw that hits just right in front of him. Now this move isn't as damaging as some of the other moves, but it can flinch you a little bit, and more importantly, it can go through your temporal mantle. And by that I mean it can go through your temporal mantle and damage you without triggering the evasion, or the automatic dodge from the mantle. And given how Arch-Tempered Nergigante has a damage buff, that's important to keep in mind, especially because of the other tick moves. So that includes the double paw swipe, so that's just like the front swipe, except he does a two-hit combo, either left to right or right to left. This also goes through the temporal mantle, so if you're not careful, you probably see where I'm going with this. And I say that because I was hunting once with a party, a random party, and I remember Arch-Tempered Nergigante doing a double paw swipe combo, either that or a front swipe first, and then a combo into a double swipe, and then the running headbutt. And I don't remember if the guy died, but all I remember was the guy had a temporal mantle on and took a lot of damage. So this is something you want to be mindful of, especially if you're not in full health, because it could actually end up carding you. Another tick move to watch out for is the basic headbutt. So it'll just kind of go forward, hit you with a headbutt. This one also does not activate the temporal mantle. Another one is the basic tail slam, so this one just goes up and down. It doesn't go sideways or spin. Arch-Tempered Nergigante also has a tail flick that he'll kind of sort of hit you towards the side. He'll sort of look towards the side a bit, and then wherever he's looking, that's the direction that the tail's going to sort of flick at. It's not a spin, but it still can hit you when you're on the side. He also has a double wing flap, so this one, if you're anywhere near it, it can sort of hold you in place for a bit. It's kind of like wind pressure. So just be careful when you see him crouch and then have both wings sort of go low down to the ground, because then he'll open his wings up, and that's where the wind pressure gets you. Next up is what I'd like to call his power move. So we'll start off with the ground swipe uppercut, which I also like to call the volleyball serve toss, where Nergigante raises a front paw while 3 of its legs stay on the ground, and then swipes the ground and follows through upward with that swipe. Arch-Tempered Nergigante also has a basic rushing forward bulldozer type move where he kind of goes forward with his head low down to the ground and then sort of just bulldozes over you. Next is the Spiky Horn Digger. With this move, Nergigante momentarily stands up, then slams its horn downward with force. The spikes then shoot forward as it raises its head. This hits straight in front of the monster, so go to the side once he starts standing up. Next is the Standing Paw Slam. So Nergigante stands up on its hind legs this time while raising a front paw, rears back once more, then brings its raised paw down vigorously to slam the ground. The paw sinks after a momentary pause, and then shoots spikes. This is powerful, but it has a slow wind up, so it's easy to avoid unless you're button mashing like a maniac. Then there's the long distance pounce. Nergigante jumps forward and pounces on the ground. This should be familiar to a lot of folks, but this is one of Nergigante's favorite moves as far as closing the gap, especially when it's targeting a player that is kind of standing far away. He makes it pretty obvious. Like, the moment he looks at you, you kind of know that this is one of the moves that might be coming. Next is the Wing Bulldozer Tackle, so now we're getting to the moves that hit other areas besides the front. So with this move, Nergigante falls on its side, then scrapes the ground with its wings, shooting spikes toward the direction where the wing side is facing. So it's basically a counter against hunters who are hitting it from the side. Basically, once you see it start, just move out of the way or block it. Next up is the Ground Swipe 180. So with this move, Nergigante raises his front paw, but does not stand up all the way. The monster then swipes its front paw on the ground 180 degrees. While it looks more like a ground attack, this can actually hit you in the air, and I say that because I've been hit by it while doing the aerial maneuvers with my insect glaive during one hunt. Next is the Quick Turn Slam. So with this move, Nergigante sort of stands up again, and then quickly turns around and uses its paw to slam the ground. This move comes out really fast, and I think it might even track a bit, so it can be tricky to avoid if you're caught by surprise. The main thing about this move is that it can hit you even when you are attacking him from the back, like say the hind legs, because he'll turn around and then sort of swipe at you downwards. You especially want to be mindful of this because it can take out a lot of health. I've seen it take maybe about half a life bar. Yeah, so if you're attacking him from the back or the tail and then he stands up and quickly starts twisting, you want to be on the lookout for it. Next we have the Star Dunk Volcano, or the Slam Dunk Air Slam. So with this move, Nergigante flies upward just above its target for a bit, and then slams and sinks its front right paw downward, followed by its left paw. This one can take 2/3 of your life bar at max health, so make sure you avoid it. Then we have the Spin of Death. With this move, Nergigante quickly looks toward his side while on all fours, and then does a spinning attack with its tail. This one hits really hard and can come out quickly. It also has deceptively good range, so you'll want to be on the lookout for this because spins in general are one of his more dangerous moves, and I've seen so many people cart from spins, and that includes me. I'm a person too. I'm one of those people. Then you have the Tail Slam and Spin move. So with this move, he slightly raises his right arm, like really slightly off the ground, at the same time as he raises his tail. And then he slams his tail straight downward and spins it in a 270-degree circumference. So this you really want to look out for, especially if you're attacking around him, because it can one-shot you. And I say that from experience. And when I was one-shot by this move, I was actually approaching him from the front. And so the sweep goes 270 degrees, which means the safe spot is pretty much on the rear right hind leg, because the tail should stop before it reaches that point in the spin. I've also never seen this move start towards the right. It seems to always start from the left. One thing to note is that it can be tricky to spot if you're standing from the front. That's how I got hit by it, because I didn't see the tail go down. And so that's why I mentioned like him raising the right front paw just a little bit. So that would be a good tail to sort of look out for if you're standing in the front. I'm not sure if you can dodge this by going underneath them. So yeah, it can be tricky to dodge depending on where you're standing at. Otherwise, if you have the time to Superman jump it or dive it, I recommend Superman diving it. Next we have the Air Pounce 180, and this is a move that Arch-Tempered Nergigante loves to spam. I see this so many times in one hunt. So basically it will quickly jump up in the air and raise its right paw, then swipe downwards to the ground and do a 180-degree turn as it lands. So this comes out quick and can be difficult to react to, and it also does a lot of damage. Note that he can do this while hopping backwards, so standing behind him is not necessarily a safe spot when he does it. So once you see him start going up, just avoid the impact area where the monster's front paw is going to land as he dives. And as long as you do that, it's pretty easy to avoid. It's just kind of quick, so you want to make sure you're on the lookout for it. So last but not least is everyone's favorite move, the dive bomb. So we've all seen this move before. Normal Nergigante does this as well. This is usually preceded by, say, a standing roar. Now, when he does this, he will then fly up in the air, and then briefly he'll kind of fly backwards a little bit, and then after that he'll just go dive bomb straight into the ground, while shooting spikes towards his front as it hits the surface. This covers a lot of ground, and typically can't be dodge rolled normally, so you'll want to Superman dive it. You know, just sheath the weapon, start pressing or holding the run button, and just mash that dive button until it comes out. You can block it depending on your, weapon or stamina or armor skills, but it can still shave off a nice chunk of your health. So just be on the lookout for that. The extra damage on the ground also really hurts. So if worse comes to worse and you have an aerial weapon and maybe you can't sheath it fast enough to dodge it, if you have enough health, just go up in the air and then eat the damage from the air, because then at least you don't get the full damage that includes the ground stuff too. So basically you'll want to observe Nergigante and look for certain tells that he does to sort of get an idea of what move is going to come out next. So these include looking to the side, raising his arms, standing up, raising the tail up, falling on its side, and then jumping up in the air. Yeah, so just look out for those. So when he looks to the side, usually that either signifies a tail flick or a tail spin. With the tail flick, he'll usually look in the direction where he's going to flick his tail at, and with the spins, he usually does those starting on the left. And for the tail, when it goes up, it'll either just go straight down, or it'll do that 270-degree spin that always sort of starts on the left. So for that, as long as you're standing kind of towards the right in the back, then you should be fine. If it raises its arm without standing, but the arm raise is just a little bit slight, then it might be doing a tail slam and a spin, which can be kind of hard to see from the front depending on when you're standing. If it raises an arm higher, but does not stand up, it might be winding up for a ground swipe 180, or even a ground swipe uppercut. If it stands up, depending on how long Nergigante is standing, the move could be different. If it's momentary, it could signal a spiky horn digger, so stay away from the front. It could also mean that it'll be doing a quick turn slam, so the moment you start seeing it pivoting, that's going to be it, especially since it can still hit you when you're standing behind him. If Arch-Tempered Nergigante stands up and then rears its back, it could be doing a standing paw slam, so stay away from the front. If it falls on its side, that's definitely a wing bulldozer tackle, so just stay away from the area right in front of the wings. If Arch-Tempered Nergigante jumps up, depending on the length and positioning, this could portend several moves. The air pounce 180 comes out the quickest and can cover decent ground. If it stays airborne a bit longer, then it could be doing the slam dunk air slam, which is usually more vertical. Just keep in mind that he can do it jumping a little bit backwards as well. Just avoid standing in the area where the front paws are going to crash down, or maybe even the belly. And then if he flies up and then hovers a bit and then rears back, it'll do a dive bomb. Anyway, that's my quick breakdown of Arch-Tempered Nergigante's moveset. What tips do you have for fighting Arch-Tempered Nergigante? As always, if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to share them in the comment section. Once again, this is Tabi Asobi, and thank you for watching.